Hi guys, welcome back to TOEFL with Juva. In this lesson, I show you how to write a TOEFL independent writing essay for an imaginary situation question, and I will give you tips to help you increase your score. The question is about cleaning at school. Let's get started! By the way, if you want to get your dream TOEFL score, join my course. Here you can find templates, practice tests, sample answers, and much more to really boost your score. Also, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video. First, let's have a look at the question. Your school has decided to save money by having the students do all of the cleaning tasks, such as sweeping the halls and washing the windows, rather than hiring a person to do them. Do you agree with this policy? Use specific reasons and examples to support your argument. This is the rarest type of question for TOEFL independent writing. It explains an imaginary situation, then asks you about your opinion. There is no correct answer. Instead, you should show the TOEFL examiner how well you support an opinion. This type of question often gives a topic that has many advantages and disadvantages. I can think of a few reasons that students should not do cleaning tasks at school. For example, it could take away from time learning academic studies. However, I can easily think of two good ways that the plan helps the students. So I decided to write from an agreement viewpoint. I don't want to discuss problems with the plan, so I will strongly agree. If I agree, I can use the template I created for agree-disagree style questions. I think templates are great because they give you great sentence starters. You can structure your essay well with a template and save time to think about your reasons. Here's what I wrote for the introduction. I totally agree with the idea that children should do housekeeping chores at their schools. I feel this way for two reasons that I will describe in this essay. The template is not a memorized example because I use my own words to paraphrase the situation. Do you see that I changed students to children and cleaning tasks to housekeeping chores? The second sentence is one I use in all my essays to transition to the body paragraphs. Now, on to the first body paragraph. My first reason is that students can learn useful skills beyond academics if they are required to clean the classrooms and buildings. This sentence gives my first reason as clearly as possible. The first sentence is the topic sentence and it should explain the content of the paragraph in general terms. My second sentence gives more detail about my view. Of course, students will become better at dusting, sweeping, mopping and other chores. Of course is an awesome linking word because it adds the idea that you assume the reader knows this point. I am saying, yes, we all know that if you clean, you will get better at cleaning. However, I don't want to say cleaning again and again. I decided to give some specific examples which I join into a list. And other chores shows that the list continues and doesn't include only these three ideas that I list. I continue this idea of learning choice in the next sentence. Some children are not required to do these tasks at home, so they can acquire these skills at school. Here I stress that doing the tasks at school is good, because the students might not have a chance to do the tasks somewhere else. That strengthens my argument. Now I get to the point I really want to make in the next sentence. Since I really want to make this the key part of the paragraph, I use more importantly as the linking word. More importantly, they can learn another essential skill: teamwork. Do you see the colon? That's a great tool for emphasizing an idea. It makes my main point that kids learn teamwork stand out. Don't forget that a colon always follows a complete idea that can stand on its own as a sentence. If you use a colon correctly, you show the TOEFL examiner that you can use punctuation effectively to stress a point. The next sentence uses another great grammar idea to boost your TOEFL writing score. If students have to clean their classroom, they should divide the task equitably. This sentence includes an if clause. The if part has a present tense verb, and the resulting part includes a conditional verb. I used should divide to show that dividing is good if it happens, but may not always happen. I didn't want to talk about school every time, so changed to classroom. I also wrote evenly when I first wrote the essay. However, when I went back and proofread, I remembered equitably, which means the same thing, but which is a more complex word. Proofreading is a great chance to increase the vocabulary level and impress the TOEFL examiner. Let's move on to the next sentence. They must practice their social skills while sharing the responsibilities, such as having some students fill buckets of water while others mop. I fixed this one when proofreading too. I added the example of what students do because I thought sharing the responsibilities was vague or unclear. I gave the examples using such as rather than making a new sentence in order to have a more complicated sentence structure with a lot more information in it. I thought that was enough information for one paragraph, so went on to the concluding sentence. By completing routine tasks together, students learn not just to clean, but also to interact efficiently as a group. In this sentence, chores became routine tasks. I used another complex sentence pattern too. It's the phrase not just but also. The two parts of this phrase need to be the same grammatical structure. I checked to make sure that to clean is parallel with to interact. That phrase is a great way to conclude because it can combine the two things I discussed in the paragraph into one major idea. Things students learn by cleaning. By the way, if you want to get your dream TOEFL score, join my course. Here you can find templates, practice tests, sample answers, and much more to really boost your score. Also, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video. Moving on to the next paragraph, I made sure to indent at the start. My second reason for feeling that students ought to do cleaning tasks at school is that they will take better care of the facilities. I began this paragraph in the same way, so that the text sounds balanced. I had a first reason, now there is a second reason. I include the main idea, feeling that students ought to do cleaning tasks at school, just to remind the reader of my stance in the argument. I used ought because it's a conditional verb that is a little bit rare. It means the same as should, but it shows the TOEFL examiner a wider range of vocabulary. Here's the next sentence. I will use my school as an example. This sentence is short, but it explains what I'm going to talk about. Not all sentences have to be long. This sentence helps avoid confusion about the following discussion, which is right here. Because my classmates and I do not clean the rooms, we often drop pencil shavings and eraser fragments on the floor under our desks. Guys, I rewrote this sentence when proofreading. First, I decided to combine two shorter sentences using a because clause. That makes the first part the reason for the second part. But the other part I rewrote was the subject. It was my classmates and they. However, I realized that didn't sound very nice. It sounded like I felt better than my classmates, so I changed it to include myself. The example now sounds less like I'm complaining about others. Instead, I'm thinking about ways that I could benefit from the policy in the question. Here's the rest of the story. If we had to sweep up the mess every day, I'm sure the situation would be different. I used another if clause to show that this might happen, but it is not happening now. I'm going to continue on the same idea with more detail. We would throw away garbage and wipe up spills immediately, rather than have a much larger mess to clean up later. Instead of using several if clauses in a row, I decided to change the sentence pattern. Here I used the conditional would to show that the throwing away and wiping is not happening now. I joined the idea with rather than to show what happens now. This is a great sentence pattern to boost your TOEFL writing score. You may notice I did something else here too. I gave different descriptions for the idea of cleaning. I wrote throw away garbage and wipe up spills and a much larger mess. Changing the wording shows that I'm thinking about many different chores. Moreover, it shows a range of vocabulary. Here's the next sentence. We would also take pains to avoid damage that we would have to repair. I wasn't sure how to connect this idea to the others in the same sentence, so I made it a different sentence. The avoiding damage is different than cleaning up pencil shavings, but I think it's just as important. I used the phrasal verb take pains to imply effort. It makes my language sound more like a native speaker's. That's enough examples of taking care of the school, so I move on to the next idea. Ultimately, my classmates and I would take pride in our efforts. Ultimately means in the end. It's a great way to show the result of all that effort I described. It has the same meaning as finally, but it's more complex vocabulary. When I proofread the essay, I wasn't sure if the reader would know what I meant about taking pride in our efforts. So I added the next sentence. We could boast that we have the cleanest classroom in the school. This sentence is short, but it explains what I mean. Now I'm ready for the conclusion of the paragraph. As a result of having to do the work by ourselves, we would keep the building cleaner and cause less damage. I like to remind the reader of the main idea of the passage, as well as the main idea of the paragraph. You can see here that I used as a result to show the main idea of choice, though I paraphrased it again, to do the work by ourselves. That's the main idea of the passage. The main idea of the paragraph has two parts. I mentioned both of them, cleaning better and taking pride. Now it's time for the conclusion to the whole essay. I used the template to write this. In conclusion, it is a great idea for kids to have to complete basic housework tasks like sweeping and scrubbing sinks in their schools. This just restates the main idea from the introduction. However, I paraphrased the idea of choice. I said basic housework tasks. I also gave two examples, and one isn't in the passage so far. That's okay. I'm stressing that there are many chores, and I haven't talked about all of them. Here's the final sentence. I feel this way because students will gain valuable practical skills and because they will take care of the facilities. This is again from the template. I summarize the two body paragraphs as concisely as possible into two reasons joined by because. At this point, I was done writing. I'm not done with the essay though. I always use the remaining time to look for spelling or grammatical errors. I make sure my examples make sense and that my examples are joined with good linking words. I also look for ways to paraphrase words that are repeated. These are essential steps for a high TOEFL writing score. That's it. That's how you write an essay for an imaginary situation task that gets you a high score in TOEFL independent writing. By the way, if you want to get your dream TOEFL score, join my course. Here you can find templates, practice tests, sample answers, and much more to really boost your score. Also, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video.